She was born into nobility, but it was not wealth that shaped her destiny. In the vibrant heart of Florence, Italy, in the year 1270, Juliana Falconieri entered the world of privilege. Her family name was extinct. Her uncle, Saint Alexis Falconieri, was one of the 7 holy founders of the Servite order. From birth, her path shimmered with the promise of worldly greatness. But even as a child, Juliana's eyes were fixed elsewhere, not on gold, nor gowns, nor grandeur, but on the cross. Those who knew her spoke of a strange stillness about her, a quiet glow that lingered after she passed by. She played, yes, but her laughter was tempered. She studied, but her mind lingered on prayer. Her mother, a devout woman herself, noticed this sacred longing. And while the city celebrated pageants and politics, Juliana would slip into chapels, kneel for hours, and whisper prayers only heaven could understand. Florence may have raised her, but God was already calling her. As the years passed, Juliana's desire for God only grew deeper. When she was just 15, when many girls her age dreamt of suitors and feasts, Juliana made a different vow, one not spoken aloud, but whispered in the silence of her soul. A vow of chastity, a vow of poverty, a vow to give her life entirely and without reserve to Christ. Her family, though pious, had other plans. They envisioned a noble marriage, an alliance that would elevate the Falconieri name even further. But Juliana gently refused each offer. "My heart is already given," she would say softly, her eyes full of light and quiet fire. At first, her mother was confused, then saddened, then at last moved. Inspired by Juliana's devotion, she allowed her daughter to live out her vow in her own way. It was an act of grace, and perhaps the first miracle of Juliana's life. A mother surrendering her will to the will of God. With her vow now known, Juliana withdrew from the world, not into isolation, but into a life of quiet service. She was not a nun in the traditional sense, at least not yet, but her soul wore the habits long before her body did. Inspired by her uncle, Saint Alexis Falconieri, one of the 7 holy founders of the Servite order, Juliana became drawn to their way of life, humility, fraternity, and devotion to Our Lady of Sorrows. And so, with her mother's blessing, Juliana established a new path, a community of women who would follow the Servite spirit, living not in cloister, but in the world, serving the poor, nursing the sick, teaching the ignorant, and always praying. She formed the Servite Sisters, also known as the Mentalites, because of the simple black mantle they wore over their white tunics. No gold, no jewelries, no veil of prestige, only a heart covered in mercy. Juliana called herself the servant of the servants of Mary. In a time where women's voices were often silenced, Juliana's life became a living proclamation that holiness can be won in simplicity and greatness in service. Juliana's holiness was not loud. It didn't echo through cathedrals or ride on the tongues of nobles. It whispered in sick rooms. It breathed through the silence of suffering. The Mantolate sisters, under her guidance, became angels of mercy in the streets of Florence. They cared for the sick during plagues, washed the feet of beggars, tended to dying strangers who had no family left to mourn them. And Juliana, though always small in stature, carried a presence far beyond her frame. It was said that her prayers brought healing, not always of the body, but of the soul. A hardened man long estranged from the church asked for her before death. A mother weeping for a dying child clung to her mantle. And even when no miracle came, peace did. Her presence was enough to calm storms, not always the ones outside, but the ones inside. And Florence began to call her what she never called herself, a living saint. In her later years, Juliana's body began to betray her. Her strength faded, her legs weakened, and eventually she could no longer eat. Doctors were baffled. Even the softest food caused her pain. Day after day, she lay on a small mat, wrapped in her habit, frail in body, but still radiant in soul. She accepted her suffering without bitterness, often whispering, "This is my offering." But what pained her most was not the illness, it was her inability to receive the Eucharist, the very sacrament that had fed her soul since childhood. One day, the priest came to her bedside. She could not swallow, so he didn't place the host in her mouth. Instead, he gently laid it on her chest over her heart. What happened next became legend. The host vanished, and on Juliana's chest, over her heart, was a glowing mark and the perfect shape of the cross. Heaven had received her offering, and Christ had received his bride. On June 19th, 1341, Juliana Falconieri drew her final breath. The room was quiet. Her sisters knelt around her, some whispering prayers, others weeping softly. But Juliana's face was radiant. She died just as she lived, in humble surrender, wrapped in a servant habit, her heart still marked by the mystery of the Eucharist. As news of her death spread through Florence, the city paused. Bells tolled, pilgrims came, even nobles knelt beside beggars, weeping for the woman who had saved them all. She was buried at the Servant Church of the Annunciation, where a simple tomb became a shrine of miracles. People claimed healings. Others came only to weep and find peace. And the sisters she had once taught, young women in black mantles with white tunics, stood tall, holding torches of faith that Juliana had lit in silence. Her body might have failed, but her legacy had just begun. Saint Juliana Falconieri left no grand building, no writings, no palace, no worldly inheritance. But she left something far greater, a legacy woven in compassion. The servant sister she founded continued to care for the sick, the forgotten, the poor, spreading her spirit through quiet acts of mercy across the centuries. And the Church, recognizing the depth of her sanctity, formally canonized her in 1737 under Pope Clement XII. Today she is honored as the patron saint of bodily ills, and especially of those who suffer from chronic illness or digestive disorders. Why? Because even when her body could no longer receive the Eucharist, her soul never stopped hungering for Christ. Her life reminds us that sainthood is not always forged in the fire of martyrdom, but in the gentle discipline of daily love, in her vow, in her service, in her suffering. In every